Hey, Riders. Today I'm excited to have as a guest Brad Carlson. Brad is a certified health coach, spiritual practitioner, author, and speaker. He guides others on a journey of self discovery into becoming fit, happy, and healthy through his Live Happy and Healthy and Inspired podcast, in his books, Mind Strong, and the one we'll be talking about today, Take Back Your Life. So stay tuned and learn how to rediscover yourself, even as an older runner. So welcome to the Forever Runner podcast. I'm your host for the Forever Runner. I'm a heart attack survivor, ultra runner, and longevity coach for runners over 50. Listen in each week as we discover how to master your running to enjoy an active lifestyle as you age. To learn more, head to foreverrunner.com for show notes and to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. All right. Well, welcome, Brad. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Herb. It's an honor to be here, an honor just to be talking with you about all things.
Yeah, we were talking before. The type of things we talk about it isn't really rampant through the running industry. So it's great to find another true believer out there to have on the show and to share with everyone.
And I would say not just the running industry, but the whole health and fitness industry as a whole. Yeah, the low heart rate training just doesn't get a lot of attention, but those that do use it know how effective it is and how much, especially both you and I are over 50 now. I know my body's slowing down, but how much I'd say safer it is and how much more effective long term it is and how much more I think sustainable it is long term also. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Thanks for having me on again today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd like to start off. I know you have a great story. So if you can take us back to your 2010, where you were, what were you, like 50 pounds overweight?
My gosh, yeah, that's the beginning. It's actually 2009 when the story began, and I tell the story 2009. I was still married at the time and sitting on my bed at home. The girls, I think, were in the kitchen or something like that. And I had the Santa Claus belly or, whatever we might call it, 50 pounds overweight. And I looked down and I just became disgusted with myself. And I thought, well, how can I do this? How could I have ever let this happen? And so right then and right there, I did what most people do. I said, this was November of 2009, so not quite New Year, but I set that resolution or whatever, I'm going to lose 50 pounds. And this is where the story gets, fun, exciting. This is where the story really takes off because from November 2009 to November 2010, absolutely nothing happened. I didn't do anything, like no program, nothing, a complete failure of epic proportions, as you might say. I didn't do a single anything of anything. I mean, and so literally 1 year later, November 2010, I was right back in the exact same spot, sitting on my bed again, still married at the time. And I say still married because that becomes an important part of the story and the journey later on. But looked down again 2010 and realized, oh my gosh, nothing has happened. And so I set what I thought was to set a correct goal, which my goal was to lose weight. At that time, it was to lose, 30 pounds. Later on, that would become 50 pounds. But I thought that that was the goal that I was supposed to set was to lose the weight. And later on, I would learn that that's the wrong goal. But anyway, so the one thing that I would always like to tell people from that first year of what I call my epic failure is it gave me the most need that I think anybody needs for any type of journey that you're on. If you want to go from point A to point B, if you want to achieve something big in your life, and I know you've done this a lot, Coach Herb, but that first year it gave me that ingredient, what I call determination. And I didn't have that in my first year. And so that's why we people a lot of times tend to look down on failure, but failure was such a good and positive thing for me in my life that first year because it taught me, oh, I need to be determined, I need to be committed, and I need to be focused because I didn't have any of that in November 2009. Well, November 2010, I had all of that determination, focus, and commitment. And anyone trying to achieve anything, you're going to have those three things determination, focus, and commitment. And so, yeah, November 2010, I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to lose the weight. And I got lucky because a coworker of mine gave me one of those home-based fitness programs, those 90-day do-it-yourself program. And this is where my story also gets interesting because I said, you know what? I literally told this to myself. It's like, I don't care about losing weight at this point. I just want to do this 90-day program and I want to finish it. And that became my goal, was to finish the program. And a lot of times I'll work with people or say, why don't we pick up, let's not worry about losing weight or anything like that. Let's just pick a goal like a 5K or a 10K, or in my case, let's just pick some goal and let's just work towards finishing that goal. And so I did. I did the 90-day program and I lost 30 pounds, and so losing weight became the byproduct. And so that's what I tell people a lot of times too. Let's have losing weight be the byproduct of something bigger, something more powerful, something more exciting. But I didn't know anything what I was doing, and I hadn't become a recreational endurance athlete at that point yet. So I lost the 30 pounds, but I didn't know what I was doing at the end of the 90 days. I hadn't really gained any new skills. I had just, kind of very blatantly copied a program, like it said, show up and do this every day. So that's what I did. But I didn't really learn the knowledge. I didn't learn the skills, how to sustain this, how to really keep this off. And so within 2 weeks, I like to tell people I gained 12 pounds back. I'm like, "Oh, great. This isn't gonna work." And so I did the only thing I knew how to do was to set another external goal. In this case, it was to train for one of those, you've heard of, Bear Grylls, I think his name is, like Man Meets Wild, one of those where you go out in the wilds and woods and you try to survive and all. So I was still living in
What sort of event was it?
so I forget the name of it. It was so long ago. It was in the summer of 2011. But it was in Washington, actually, in the Yakima area, just outside of Yakima, Washington. And I went on a week-long adventure. There was 15 of us from all over the country, and we lived, we hunted, we gathered just like native indigenous people would hundreds of years ago. Whatever we caught, whatever we dug up, we could filter our own water using dirt and rocks and leaves and, stuff like that, and start fire by friction. But anyway, the point is I set another external goal and I achieved it and got in really good shape. And I remember some of the folks saying, "Wow, Brad, you're in really good shape." I thought, well, that's cool. But going home, the same problem. Okay, I don't know what to do now. And I gained 6 pounds back like within a week of me coming home. It was just crazy. And so I'm gonna hold on here. And so I was like, "What is going on here?" So I remember one day, and I don't want to take up too much time with my story here, but I remember one day, about 3 weeks after I got home from that adventure, I was in my garage and lifting weights, and like I just was like just demotivated. Like I had started to gain weight back, and I noticed because the belt notch on my belt had gotten bigger again. Like I had to, go from notch 3 to notch 2 back to notch 1 again. This is within 3 weeks. I'm like, this is insane. And that's the yo-yo cycle everybody talks about. You gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. And so finally I put the bench press, I put it back on the bench rack, I remember, and I got up and I stood up and I just out of nowhere asked myself this question. And this is the question that changed my life. And I tell everyone, ask yourself this question. And the question I asked myself was, why am I doing this? And long story short, the answer that came back to me was to take care of my mind, body, and spirit. That if I take care of my mind, body, and spirit, my mind, body, and spirit will take care. And that's what I like to tell everybody is ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? And when you have that why, it becomes a very powerful motivator. Now, little did I know that my why would become my second miracle. I hadn't had my first miracle yet. This is a little, my story does not go in order. It doesn't go A, B, C, D. My story goes A, D, B, C, F, and then back to G or whatever. My story kind of skips around. But I started to understand slowly about this whole idea of health and wellness. And so eventually I became an endurance athlete. I started to do 5Ks, 10Ks, eventually working up to half marathons, full marathons. I did all the Spartans and everything like that. And over the course of about 7 years, I did these races and I got really good and I got really, really fit. I think in about 2017, I was really, really peaking. In fact, I had my last Spartan race in 2017 and I did really, really well. I remember that. I was at a peak physically. But the more I did, and this becomes a big part of my story, the more I did physically, like the less and less healthy I got. And that's kind of hard to understand because people think, well, if you're exercising and eating right and all of that, from about 2012 to 2018, I did all of this. And I learned a lot more about eating and exercising and all that. Because back in 2010, I didn't know anything about anything. I was just blindly copying whatever what was in front of me. But I realized in 2018 that I had gotten to the point where I was very physically fit, could run a marathon. I was, doing, I think at that time, 40 to 60 miles a week, which probably isn't a lot for runners, culture, but that was a lot for me at the time. And my body was starting to break down. I was getting more and more stressed. I probably was overtraining. I realized now a little bit at the time too. But I realized that, okay, I'm physically fit, but I am not healthy at all. And thus, that began a lifelong, what has now become a lifelong journey into this idea of taking back your life and becoming healthy, not just healthy, but healthy, happy, and inspired. And I realized somewhere along the way that, okay, I'm fit, but now it's time to get healthy. And so I had to understand, well, what does it mean to be healthy? And at that point, I realized, well, there's a spiritual aspect to being healthy. There's a physical aspect to being healthy, which I had done really well on the physical part. But there's a mental aspect to being healthy. There's an emotional aspect to being healthy. And I realized that my mind wasn't yet in the right place. My feeling, like my joy of life, was not in the right place. You think if you lost 50 pounds and did all these races and had all these medals and everything that I had gotten. I had never, I should point out this to people too, never once did I place in podium the top three, even in my age bracket. And I always tell people this, the vast majority of my races, I always finished in the bottom 10. Maybe about a third of the time I would finish like in the top upper 50% of my bracket and overall. And I always like to tell people it's not about necessarily where you finish. It's about getting up off the couch like I did and getting going and finding yourself, finding your identity, which I talk about chapter 2 in my book about that point B, about finding yourself. And then it's about what I learned in the beginning, that first year of failing, being determined, committed, and focused to changing your life, to improving your life, to becoming that next version of. And so anyway, I had to learn how to become healthy and what exactly that meant. So I spent about 2 years trying to understand what does it mean to be healthy. And so I shifted my priorities in my life around. And this is what I like to tell people too. If you want to get healthy, then it has to be a priority in your life. This is not something that you can just talk about, but this is something, again, commitment, focus, dedication, and that you have to just go all in with. But what I did is I switched my priorities in my life around. And what I mean by that is I backed off from like 40, 50 miles a week to maybe 10 miles a week. And I dropped and that's when I started to learn about the slow, easy methadone method of the low heart rate training too. It was in 2000, I think 14 or 15, maybe 16. But I started to slow down and I went from, training at about a 10 to 11-minute mile to sometimes a 14 or 15-minute mile. And for anyone over 50 listening right now, my body said, thank you, Brad. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My body really appreciated, my joints appreciated everything when I started that lower heart rate training and that what I call slow easy methodology. But I learned along the way, I want to point this out too, that when I did all those races, I didn't know who I was. I did about 40 or 50 endurance races. I forget the exact number now. And you always get participation medals and all that. And like I said, usually I finished in the bottom 10, but I always showed up and I always finished every race. There was a couple races I literally had to limp across the finish line. It was just crazy. But I didn't know who I was. And this becomes an important part of the story and the journey too, because I learned later on, I did all of those races, all of that training. I did it all for the wrong reasons. I thought if I don't do these races, I won't be worthy. If I don't do these races, people won't value me. People won't think I'm important. If I don't do these races, people won't talk to me. If I don't do these races, people aren't going to, think highly of me or that. So it became an ego rush, an ego trip. And I realized they did all of that out of fear. And that's part of the reason I was getting physically fit, but I was getting less and less healthy is because I was driven by fear and by ego for almost 7 years. And anyone who wants to take back your life, as I say, and have any type of journey be sustainable, you've got to learn to let go of fear and let go of ego by discovering who you are, by discovering your identity and what your true purpose for doing this, what your why is, what your true purpose for doing this. And eventually I was able to let go of all that and replace the fear with peace. And that's key to making any wellness journey sustainable. That's key to taking back your life is when you come from a place of peace, what I call peace and joy and love, as opposed to a place of fear. And my book talks about that quite a bit.
I wanted to say you just hit on something. Back in my 50s, I was very competitive, and I was sponsored by Hammer Nutrition at the time. And uh, yeah, I was out there and I was driven by fear and ego. I was under pressure every race I did. I had the little kit on with the sponsors thing, and I felt like I had to do good no matter what. And it was those two things you talk about, the fear and the ego, and you can do okay, but down the road, it just leads to burnout. And,
And that's exactly what was happening with me.
yeah, yeah.
And that's why I said I was fit, but I was not healthy at all. And I was getting less and less healthy. Yeah. So we have to learn, and it's okay to be competitive. I'm not saying that. We have to learn to really understand what it's all about for us. And my ego, all that, I was driven by competition, wanting the first place medal and all that, which that's great. I'm not saying that because there's definitely a place for competition in our society. I mean, it brings out a lot of spectacular drama. And, I just watched the Olympics. That was great. We can do the same thing. So we can still do the races. And in my case, I still do something every day. I still run 3, 4 times a week. I still do lift weights. I still do sometimes it's dancing, I'll go to dance class, or sometimes I'll just do my rebounding, my trampoline jump. But when we have to understand that our worthiness in life, our being enough, our joy of life, it's not attached to what we did. And once we realize that, then we can still go out and do the race and be competitive, but we're realizing that who I am as a person, it doesn't matter. It's independent of what I do. We can't attach our identity to what we're doing. And a lot of people, especially in Western culture, we do that. We attach our identity to what we're doing. And it doesn't matter what I do. I am Brad Carlson. I know this now. I'm Brad Carlson. I am happy, healthy, and inspired. You see, I smile when I say that. And it took me a long time. And again, there's a lot of parts of my stories that I left out. But it took me a long time to understand that to get rid of the fear and the ego, it's about discovering who you are and realizing that who you are is not attached to what you do. If who you are is attached to what you do, then that's where fear and ego comes in. And again, this is not. I'm not making this stuff up. This stuff goes back thousands of years. This is something Buddha taught. This is something Lao Tzu taught. Many of the great spiritual teachers throughout history have taught this. So I had to learn, um, and this is when the peace started to really settle in. This is when I started to get healthy, spiritual, and mentally and emotionally. When I finally realized that who I am, I finally realized who I am, and that who I am is not attached to what I do. And the way I discovered that was just anybody listening, the way you discover that is you have to do what's called the inner work. You have to look inside. You'll feel something is just not right. So in my case, it started with stress and burn. Like, I'm just stressed. I'm just burned out. What's going on? I'm eating right. I'm exercising, all this. I'm supposed to feel great and have all this energy. That's what they tell you. You want more energy, eat healthy, eat vegetables and fruits and, exercise. I don't know what the American Heart Association says now, 4 times a week, 5 times a week for 30 minutes or something. But I was doing all that And yeah, like I said, I was fit, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't healthy. I didn't feel more energy, any of that. I felt the complete opposite. So that was my starting point. So your starting point is always what you're feeling inside. It's always how you're feeling inside. And I've learned now that whatever you're feeling inside, if it works for you, then keep at it. Keep going with life. But if what you're feeling inside is not working for you, in this case, I was feeling stressed and burned out and overwhelmed, those three things. I realize now that wasn't working for me. And so if you have a feeling inside and it's not working for you and you realize, you know what, this isn't working for me, you have to address it head on. And the way you address it head on, the way I do anyway, this is the technique I teach, is I get my journal out. And I'll write in my journal, okay, I'm feeling stressed, burned out, tired, and frustrated right now. That's me addressing the feeling, that emotion head on. And then I ask the question, what is causing me to feel this way? That's a question I ask. And then I just I'm not sure how to explain this part. I just let a higher power take over and answer that question for me. Like I literally just put my pen on the paper and just let the words just flow. I have no idea what I'm going to write. And it's like, wow, it's some really amazing stuff that comes out. And then you have to always ask yourself, anytime you create an empty spot in nature or called a niche or something like that, it has to be replaced with something. And this is where I began to learn to control my mind and have that mindset change. What's causing me to feel stressed, tired, and burned out? Well, it's because I was having thoughts about, my life is not working. I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. Well, I asked myself another question. Well, how do I want to feel? And that's a very powerful question anybody can ask themselves, whether you're over 40, over 50. How do I want to feel in life? And write down a list of words, how you want to feel. I want to feel joyful every day. I want to life every I want to wake up feeling like on top of the world. I want to wake up feeling alive. These are all the opposite emotions of depression and anxiety and things like that. Well, and then again, I just keep asking myself questions. What is keeping me right here and right now from feeling alive, from feeling on top of the world, from feeling excited about my life? And it always comes back to a thought. So whatever you have going on in your life, I don't know you. For those listening, I haven't met you, but I can 99.999% guarantee it has to do with the thought that you're having. And it's not just a thought that you're having, it's the fact that you believe that thought. That's the tricky part. I can say like right here, "Oh, I am a wonderful person." That's great, but if I don't believe it, then that's a problem. So I have to be able to believe that thought. So again, it's always journaling. What is preventing me from believing this thought that I am an amazing person? This, again, I had to go through a lot of self love and everything like that to learn all of this. But those are some of the steps that I began to take slowly to take back my life. Because taking back your life to me is not just about your physical health, it's your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, all four of those. And just continuing to always take it like, how am I feeling? Does this feeling work for me? How do I want to? What's keeping me from feeling the way I want to feel? Because what really matters at the end of the day that I've learned is not how much money you have in the bank, but is how you feel.
Yeah, I really like your process through the book. And you started off in the book using the five whys. And but when I used to work for a living, yeah, so part of my work, I was a lean facilitator. And, lean is uh, the Toyota method of production. And deeply steeped into the lean culture is finding the root cause, and in the approach to discover that oftentimes is by going through the practice of what we call the five whys. And I've used that in my coaching practice, and it was great to see how that's kind of how you started the first part of your book.
That was, like I said, when I was in the garage and put the weight back on and stood up and asked, "Why am I doing this?" And the bolt of lightning hit me like an epiphany. If I take care of my mind, body, spirit, my mind, body, spirit will take care of me. And again, that's what I tell everybody. Take care of your mind, your body, your spirit. You've been given this incredible gift of a mind, a body, and a spirit. If you take care of them, they will take care of you. If you don't take care of them, they will come back to haunt you in the form of, high blood pressure, diabetes. Some of this is genetic. I get that. And not all of it's within our control. But really, what I learned later on is, and I didn't tell this part of my story, is that I had another epiphany about what we focus on, we become. And that eventually became that was the second miracle I had in my life, the second epiphany, but I had to reverse the order because that really is the first step is what do you want to focus on? Who do you want to focus on becoming? And that's chapter 2 in the book. When I talk about going from point A to point B, I put that first, and then the why part became chapter 3. A couple of years ago, those would have been reversed. But had I written this book 5 years ago, those two would have been reversed. But really, for anybody, the first two steps in your journey is understanding who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Uh, who are you now? Is it working for you? If it is, great. And if not, who do you want to be? I wanted to be someone that was mentally healthy, spiritually healthy. I wanted to be someone who was happy, healthy, and inspired. And now my goal in life has to become someone that is happy, healthy, and inspired. And that's very different than saying, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to be happy, healthy, and inspired. And then, and then people ask, well, you always have to focus on who you want to be before you try to ask, what can I do? And then the next question after you ask, who am I? Okay, what can I do to be this person? And then, I can do this race, or I can do, I could go run at my local hill for 5 miles or something. But the whole focus is on being happy, healthy, and inspired. And by the way, I lost 10 pounds. So I completely shifted my focus away from losing weight to just being this person. That's how I was able to retrain my mind to become a healthy eater. Because part of my problem in my journey, for even though I had lost weight for the first 3 years, I was still eating Twinkies and donuts and ding dongs and cupcakes, and those were my kryptonite. And I didn't know, I still didn't understand about healthy eating. And so part of my story also is one day I'm at the health department, and this is about 3 years into my journey, and still losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight. And there were some donuts and cookies on the table in there. Of course, I'm going to eat them. How can you not eat them? They're right there. And I hadn't made a correlation yet between, eating this and health and sugar and all that and fuel and all that. So I still remember this part of my story. I went to literally like grab the donut. It was a strawberry glazed donut with sprinkles on it, which somebody there knows that's my favorite. Like, that's like giving me a Christmas present earlier or something. But I went to reach for it, and literally my hand started shaking, like, if you can see it here in the camera, like this, and something literally pulled my hand back. Like I call it a force of God or nature or something. And this question just came to me. If I eat that donut, will it help me to be healthy, happy, and inspired? And I went, oh my God. I'd never asked myself that question before. And the answer right away became no. It won't. And then I don't know where this next question came from, but I asked myself, well, what can I eat that will help me be happy, healthy, and inspired? And this is a funny part of the story. The answer that came to me right away was spinach. And I thought, I hadn't eaten spinach pretty much my whole life. I'm like 42, 43 years old at the time now. The only thing I knew about spinach was from the old Popeye cartoons growing up as a kid. Yeah. Spinach. Okay, who would have thought? So I went to the farmer's market right after work that day. I bought spinach, and there I learned, you have spinach, you have kale, you have romaine, you have all these different types of leafy green. I had no clue. I mean, again, this was really early in my journey. So I bought like $30 worth of leafy greens and cucumbers and vegetables. I'm like, this is insane. And I didn't know what to do. I just chopped them all up and I made a salad and I started eating salads. And I still didn't know about proteins or any of that yet, but that was the beginning. That was a turning point. So again, it's always focusing on who you want to be and what actions and steps can you take that will help you to be that person. Eating donuts wasn't going to help me to be healthy, happy, and inspired. Now, I still didn't fully understand my definition of health at that time, but again, that was a starting point. And the best way, really, to begin any of this is to sincerely want to make a change, to make a decision to change. That's what started it all for me. To be committed, focused, and determined, not to doing something, this is really important, but to being someone. Steal my identity if you want for anyone listening. Choose to be your own version of happy, healthy, and inspired, whatever that is for you. Choose your own version to be, okay, I want to be the best version of me. That's fine. Well, what does that look like? Be real specific what that looks like. For me, it's happy, healthy, and inspired. That. And then what actions can I take to be this person? Do my actions align up with who I want to be? If yes, take the action. If no, don't do that action. And so that's real easy. That's how you can quit smoking, quit drinking, get over gambling, any of these addictions. Will this action help me be this version of this vision of me, this highest vision of me that I have for myself? In most cases, things like smoking, drinking, drugs, all that, if we're honest with ourselves, the answer is going to be no. You have to be really, really honest with yourself in this process. You have to be your best friend, your best coach, and your best critic at the same time. And that's it's been a little bit of all of that, but that's what it takes to take back your life. I wish I'm not gonna lie, my book, Curb, Take Back Your Life, I think could be a PhD dissertation for wellness. If there was such a thing. There's a lot. You've read it. There's a lot in there, and it can be overwhelming. But it's a complete A to Z blueprints for what I did, what I went through, how to take back your life. When I started, I was 50 pounds overweight, lethargic, couch potato. The complete opposite of thriving. Very low self-esteem, I can't even say low self-esteem, low self-worth. It was non-existent. Low would mean that I at least had some, but I had none. I had zero. The depression, the anxiety, I've gone through all of that. And it's possible to overcome all of that. It's possible to break through all of that. The book tells you how, it teaches you how, but you have to commit to it. You have to be determined. You have to be focused to bettering your life, to improving your life. And it starts with that. Who are you? Who are you? And yeah, I go from there.
Yeah, it's it. It was an eye opener for me, and I think it's especially for us runners. I identify as an ultra runner, and if I tie my identity to that, then my whole life rotates around how my ultra running does. Dude, yeah,
Okay, let me say real quick, Coach. It's okay to say I am ultra runner. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we can't tie to ultra running is my well-being, my joy, my happiness, my peace. If I tie any of that to being an ultra runner, that's coming from fear. And so we have to be, part of who you are, part of who I am, the peace, the love, the joy, the happiness. We can be that irregardless, again, of what that identity. We just can't tie that identity to our joy of life, is what I like to say.
yeah, yeah. It
Not
was
attachment. Not attachment is what it's called in the whatever spiritual world or Buddhist form of Buddhism, all that stuff.
yeah, yeah, because it can't be your single source of joy.
Yeah, it can't be any sort. Your joy is independent of anything. Your peace, your self-worth, once I learned all of this stuff, that anybody's joy, anybody's peace, anybody's self-worth is independent of anything and everything. It's not dependent on what someone says, what someone does, not dependent on what you say or it's because that's who you are. People talk about who is my authentic self. I'm telling you, your authentic self is peace. That is joy. You have all of that without doing anything. That's the great secret of the universe that very few people understand.
Yeah, that's just fantastic. I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Now, your book, it's on Amazon, Take Back Your Life. You can look it up there, but what's the best way for people to connect up with you?
Yeah, thank you, Coach Herb. The best way for people to see me or connect up with me is just on Facebook. Just go to Facebook, search my name, Brad Carlson. You'll see my picture there, and you can follow me, and then you'll get all kinds of great tips and strategies and advice and topics for taking back your life, how to live happy, healthy, and inspired.
Well, that's great. And you've got your books, you've got your podcasts, and you do some coaching. I'll go ahead and put a link to your profile in the show notes so that people can connect with you because you give good little inspiring posts every so often. And
Yeah, thank you.
it's great to have you in my back pocket. So
Yeah,
thank
likewise, likewise. Like I said, I'll be reaching out when I get ready to do my ultra for sure.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for hanging with us. And we'll see you all in the next one.
Thank you,
Cheers.
everyone. Bye bye.